On Sega Talk 100, we are talking all things OutRun 2. Is this the true sequel to OutRun? Why does a game have so many versions? And why can't I buy the game anymore? All this and more on this golden episode of Sega Talk.
Sega Bits presents Sega Talk, a podcast talking all things Sega with your hosts, George and Barry.
Look, it's a giant talking egg. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the master here. So what?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sega Talk 100. I'm your host, George. And with me, like always, is Barry.
Hello. Hi.
And I think, checking everything, this episode will be recorded correctly and it won't be a repeat. No behind the scenes talk. No one's at fault, especially not me. Even though
No. This is our first time doing this. This is going well.
Hello? Oh, I already did the hello, right? So this episode is our 100th episode. Our first Sega Talk episode of all time was OutRun. So we started the podcast with OutRun. And in the back of my mind, I always thought, if we ever hit 100, it'll have to be OutRun 2. Since I think it's one of the greatest Sega sequels of all time. Maybe not all times, but I would say the 2000s.
Pretty close. It's up there.
At least the 2000s, you know. We're talking 3D polygon games, but top 10 for sure. There's so many good ones, though. So it's like Sonic 2, Streets of Rage 2, Shinobi. I don't know how that one works. We talked about that numbering issue in another podcast. Right. But before we get into the episode, if you want to keep this show going for another 100 episodes, you could always support us on Patreon at patreon.com/SegaBits. We have a lot of tiers. It starts at $1, so you could go as low as $1. And if you go up to 20, you get to tell us what to talk about for one episode.
That's right. I guess
that could be fun.
Yeah.
And before we get into the OutRun 2 talk, you wanted to talk about OutRun 1, the first one?
Yeah, I just, when we first kicked this show off 5 years ago, which is insane. I was talking about it on Swing and Report show a couple weeks ago, and I was like, clearly this is like a 3-year-old show. I was like, wow, 3 years, we made it to 100 episodes. No, 5. It's been going on forever. But you know what it is? You were saying, I'm surprised we made it to 100. It's thanks to the Patreon supporters because they keep us on schedule. They have these picks and we got to get to them. We can't, drag our feet. I've been a patron of other Patreons and they just stopped making content. And I'm like, well, screw this. And I dropped my support. We have almost consistently put out a show every other week. I think this was really our first break. And I think a well-deserved one because it lets us rest up and present OutRun. But OutRun 1 and those first, dozen or so episodes were audio only. And so we couldn't really show things. And also there has been stuff released since OutRun episode 1 of Sega Talk. So I just wanted to very quickly run through some cool stuff that I have here that I can visually show off. So if you love OutRun, there's a lot of ways to play it. So I put a stack of like interesting and unique ways to play OutRun. My preferred way, and I have it right here, is and let me see if I can click. You know what I'm going to show here. It's
Sega Ages.
Sega Ages. There we go. We're in OutRun. I think at the moment this is the quintessential way to play the arcade version of the game. And I'm so thankful that the boys at M2 have been pumping these out because they also gave us 3D OutRun, which before this was my other preferred way, but now you can play it on the TV. Between the two, which one do you prefer, 3D OutRun or Sega Ages OutRun?
I mean, Sega Ages would be the easier one. I think it's just nicer to play it on the Switch. It's funny because, I was fine with the Switch, and then I bought the 3DS and the quality of the 3DS, and then I bought the Switch, and then going back, it feels like 15 years You know, because it's so
It's-
like small, low quality pixels on the 3DS.
The 3DS is like playing a toy, which I
Right.
mean, I know all video games are toys, but you play it and it's almost like a novelty. And speaking of novelties, another way that you can play OutRun, the Game Gear version, is, and I have it here in my hand. Let's see if you can see it. It's
my God.
It's very hard to see. It's so tiny. It's the Game Gear Micro, and I have it set here to play OutRun. It's very hard to see.
It's gonna be impossible.
It won't show,
I think.
but it's so tiny. Here you can kind of see it. It's but it's just like ridiculously small, clear novelty. But it's a very fun official way to play the Game Gear release, which was a port of the Master System version. Another way to play it, of course, is for the Master System. This is my copy. I brought this one out because it's actually a pretty rare copy. This is the Blue Label version of OutRun. So this is when they reissued it, and it was SEGA managing the Master System, not Tonka. And so they gave them blue labels. And this one, I think, if it had the manual, it might sell for like $150. It's probably still close to that, but it's quite a rare one. The rarest one is Rambo, which I actually posted up on our Twitter. There's a whole story about that. You can check that out. I have two more here. The other one is kind of a stinker. It's the SEGA Classics Collection, which is a collection of the early SEGA Ages titles before M2 got involved, and these were actual 3D remakes. Now, this is I think every like hardcore SEGA fan should own this, because it is the best way to own a lot of those early SEGA Ages titles, and it gives you an idea of what they were all about. Some are great, some are pretty crummy.
Yeah.
OutRun. What do you think? What do you think about the OutRun on this version?
Stick with the Sega Ages version for sure.
Exactly. Now you can correct me. Is OutRun in any Yakuza titles?
Yeah, it's in Zero maybe. It's in a lot of them. It's one of those. Is it on Zero? I know Space Harriers in it. And I'm trying to remember. Fantasy Zone for sure. I'm pretty.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm pretty sure. I remember the Deluxe being a meme for a bit when you get on it.
So that's a great way to play the arcade version. Another one is, of course, Shenmue 2.
Yep.
And what I love about these is that, again, it's an arcade faithful port. It's in a Yu Suzuki game. But what I really love is the ability to walk around the machine and look at it and like get into it. And I think that's what's missing from even the latest releases, like the Sega Ages title. Like, I really think it would have been cool if they added 3D walkarounds of the cabinets. But that's pretty much it. I just wanted to throw out some of those fun and unique ways to play OutRun before we get into, of course, OutRun 2, which I have here.
That's the original number one.
Yeah, the original number one of 2.
Yes, of course, because there's so many expansions. So let's talk about that. OutRun 2 debuted in arcades all the way back in 2003, with its first home console port on Xbox the following year, which Barry showed you. The game would later get expansions like OutRun 2 XP/DX/SDX, and console-only expansions like OutRun 2006 Coast to Coast, which I think it's the most famous version for a lot of people probably listening to this podcast. It's probably going to be Coast to Coast. So, Barry, what's your history with OutRun 2 and its various re-releases/expansions?
I can't recall if I ever played it in arcades at the time. I've since played it, but honestly, I think the first time I played it was on the original Xbox. This copy I picked up used. But of course, there's OutRun Online Arcade, which we will talk about, and that was really my go-to version of the game. But still, you know, I think the Xbox one for me has always been what I considered to be OutRun 2. Now, you mentioned Coast to Coast. I never actually picked that because I didn't know what it was, and now I think the PlayStation 2 version is reasonable, but the Xbox one is like $150. So
yeah, you could always get you could always find a pirated PC version, because I mean you can't technically buy it. So before which we'll talk about later, the delisting, it was on Steam. You could have just bought it for $10 or whatever. But yeah, it is what it is, you know. So my history with the game, obviously, I love the console releases. I played those the most. I never had an arcade that had one of these close by. I remember playing SP one time, and it was before I got really into the console game, so I wasn't really good at it. Now I'm like, I really wish, when I got really addicted to the console game, that I would have found the arcade so I could try my sweet drifting in the arcade version. But
for sure,
it's one of those arcades that it was like, I would say the early 2000s was when which we'll talk about when we talk about the arcade boards, but really the start of people just staying at home instead of going to arcades, because you could play the actual arcade game at home now, or even better sometimes. So yeah. So OutRun 2 came out 17 years after the original. The original was a massive success. So while there wasn't an OutRun 2 by name, there were plenty of other arcade games that OutRun were marketed as sequels to OutRun. For example, Turbo OutRun in 1989 was considered the first true sequel to OutRun, and other people consider Outrunners in 1993 the true sequel. What do you consider the true sequel to OutRun?
I'm having deja vu because we did discuss this on our first attempt, but I'm so glad that we actually are redoing this, because there was a long journey of us trying to figure out, like, what is this to? I think the true sequel to OutRun was Turbo OutRun, and the reason is because that was a revision of the original game. Now, Afterburner 2, Galaxy Force 2, those sound like sequels. They are revisions, meaning that they have new features, new, graphical elements, I guess. And so what they would do is they would either sell these revisions to people, to arcade owners, or they would send conversion kits so that you could take your existing cabinet and turn it into a Galaxy Force 2 or a Afterburner 2. And so in the case of OutRun, there were OutRun cabinets that were converted to Turbo OutRun. So in that sort of sense, it's kind of a revision and also an OutRun 2, at least in terms of the concept then. Now, Outrunners, I think, is much more of a true sequel, just in the sense that it is a from-scratch new game. It's not like they didn't send out Outrunners arcade conversion kits for Turbo, or the original. But having said that, I don't think a lot of people remember that one or talk about it all that much, but thankfully it will be included on the Sega Mega Drive Mini 2, or Sega Genesis Mini, I should say, actually, 2.
And Turbo OutRun also has, like, all new levels, so all the levels are from America this time around instead of the Europe that was in the first game. So technically it is an all-new game in that sense, but it's built on the skeleton of OutRun, right? It's also made on the same board as OutRun.
Exactly.
Okay. So, yeah, I could see that being the true sequel to a lot of people. But I would say OutRun 2, since it takes the number, I have to give it to that. I mean, I think you saying it's like a revision is probably better. Because, I mean, like, Afterburner 2 really isn't 2, really. And it's more like the ultimate version of Afterburner. And would you be better with Sega using, like, not a number for their revisions? Maybe like Capcom did it with Street Fighter, where it's like Street Fighter 2, Turbo, and then it's Super Street Fighter 2.
I think, back then they did what they did. It wasn't really a problem. Nowadays, though, I think it would be kind of smart if they kind of clarified to people, like, Afterburner 2, why do we keep releasing this? Because Afterburner it's there. You're just getting the 2 revision. It's like, once you play 2, you're good, Yeah. So it does get confusing, though, even for me. I'm like, man, I got to hunt down Galaxy Force 1. Where is it?
So I think calling Turbo OutRun, if it was just a revision for the old board, OutRun 2 would have been a mistake. So it's nice to see that they saved it for this game.
Yes.
So let's talk about development. I just have a little bit of development, not that much. because there's not that much about this game online. And even if there is, we'll talk about what they actually talk about in the interviews. It's so strange. But OutRun 2 isn't like the first game. It isn't a game that was just created and then the team moved on to something else. Like when AM2 was going on, they made like a lot of games in like the span of 4 years. OutRun 2 was built and developed upon years, and it wasn't just Sega AM2 that built on it. It was also Sumo Digital. While the first game, OutRun, was largely credited to Yu Suzuki, since he was the designer of the project, OutRun 2 only had him credited as producer. Unsurprisingly, Yu Suzuki doesn't speak about OutRun 2 that much when you read his interviews. He talks more about his first OutRun game. Eurogamer did an article about Yu Suzuki's career, and it's like the only time I heard him talk about OutRun 2. If other people have articles, they could send it to me. That'd be awesome, but I haven't really seen him talk about OutRun 2 that much. And this is all it said in that Eurogamer article. It said that when Yu Suzuki was consulting Sumo Digital on OutRun 2006 Coast to Coast, it said Suzuki would impart the importance of music while advising the designers, stressing the tempo of each turn. What is your opinion on like Yu Suzuki in this game? Do you think it was like him passing the baton and letting other people have a crack at one of his titles, or you think he was hands-on in the background?
I think he always gets really involved in a project and then typically will move on because he's kind of done what he set out to do. He's not a huge franchise guy. That's why Shenmue, I think, is so special to him, because it's the one franchise he's stuck with for so long. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of who he is. Like he's making these amazing games, and then he leaves it to other creatives at Sega that I think he trusts to, move on with the brand, and I think he's more than happy with that. Though I think he does work in kind of a consulting role. I think he might have little ideas and throw it out to them, and then, they'll go, okay, Yu Suzuki told us to do this, and it works, because he's a genius. So
it'd be great where everyone just goes, all right, well, we won't do that. We'll do the opposite, and it works even better. No, I'm joking.
Right.
But Yu Suzuki at this time, like I said, the first time we tried to record this, he also was starting his own studios at the time, so I feel like him taking a producer role and not being as hands-on makes sense, because you're also building a studio from the ground up, which is not easy to do. And he had a studio within Sega for himself for like, what was it, like 2003 to 2007 maybe? AM Plus. Remember they made those. He made a few racing games. I forgot their names, but
yeah.
So this game was kind of given to the future of Sega. Usually, what I've noticed, a lot of people that were working on Daytona USA became huge people in Sega AM2. Like, they all got promoted. And it's not surprising, like we said in the Daytona USA episode, it's one of the most popular Sega arcade games of all time. So, kudos to them. Well, I didn't really follow let's say, so one of the directors of the game, just director, is Makoto Osaki, who he was a planner for Daytona USA, and he kind of oversaw other racing games, but he's only directed 2 games before OutRun 2, and it was Virtual Fighter Kids and Propeller Arena, which, in my opinion, if I had to see this, like I told you when we first recorded it, like, I would be kind of a little bit shocked that they gave him this job, because it's like Virtual Fighter Kids is a side game. Propeller Arena never came out. It wasn't terrible, but directing, I don't know. It would be like taking on one of the greatest Sega AM2 titles of all time and then directing the sequel to it,
Right.
What's your opinion on Virtual Fighter Kids? Are you like... I think it's a cool novelty, but I don't take it that serious.
Yeah, it almost felt like a test ground for some things they wanted to try in later games. It also, you have to remind me, but I don't recall if Sonic the Fighters came first or Virtual Fighter Kids, but they're both kind of like in that bucket of like big head, kid friendly, Virtua Fighting games. And I think that's probably what they were trying to present, was something a little more kid-friendly. Obviously, like, 6-year-olds aren't gravitating towards Virtua Fighter. They want something that looks a little more appealing to them. So I think that was kind of the attempt there. And I like it. Like, for me, I think it was just, when I was younger buying Saturn games, I was like, I need to own every Virtua Fighter. And I was like, holy crap, this one looks so weird. So I had to own it, you know?
Yeah.
And I liked it.
What drew me to the games, at least Virtua Fighter, was how I thought amazing the second game looked. It was like on the Saturn, I was like, what? Because at that time I only played Tekken 2 and that was blocky. It wasn't like, there's something about Virtua Fighter 2 that looks super clear, super clean. I don't know. Really popped. But the game director for this game is Daiichi Katagari. This guy, in my opinion, is probably the most important person in Sega AM2 during the 2000s. He basically took over AM2 for a while. He started off as a programmer for Daytona USA and was the game director for Virtua Fighter 3 and has taken over the franchise since then. I know it's been a long time since we had a new Virtua Fighter game, but he also worked on Afterburner Climax and OutRun 2, which I think those three games, Virtua Fighter 5, Afterburner Climax and OutRun 2 are probably really good back-to-back games from Sega AM2.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, yeah. I wish they would do more. I think we talked about it last time. It's like, I feel like they made these games and then they just disappeared. Like 2010 came and they're like, go back to the closet. We're not making any more Sega AM2 games. And they've been dormant since then. Isn't that how it feels like? I mean, the only game they really made they got released was Hatsune Miku Arcade.
Cool.
So Sega OutRun 2 would be the first game developed by AM2 on the Sega Chihiro board, which is an arcade board made by Sega and Microsoft based on the Xbox console that had launched during the development of OutRun 2. We talked a little bit more about this arcade in our House of the Dead 3 Sega Talk episode, which was written by Barry, and he did a good job covering the arcade board. But I will say the arcade board only had 10 titles, and 2 of those were OutRun games because of SP. Right. Do you think that the board was short-lived, or do you think... I mean, I think we said last time that you thought it was just Xbox funding it, so you thought you were cool with that, right?
Yeah, you know, I think my take is that I don't know the behind-the-scenes stuff, but if Microsoft did actually throw a fair amount of money at it, and Sega was not at a loss, then I don't think there's a problem there. Now, another thing you need to think about is that back in the day, like the System 1 arcade board, which had, dozens, if not 100 titles on it. I mean, obviously, games were easier to pump out. There were studios. We've covered games in the past where it's like, oh, it's this studio again. This studio had no real heart or soul. They made games. They made 10 games a month. It was a sweatshop. And I think with this, like, I think 10 is a good amount. Remember, this is not a home console. This isn't like 32X. Those 10 titles probably sell for, $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 to arcade owners. So as long as you're making 10 spectacular games that sell well, I think it's paid for itself. I don't think that's an issue. And also it does make porting easier. So this might have also made development for the Xbox versions cut down. So maybe they save money in another department,
I do wonder what Microsoft's like. Like when you do something, you have a expectation 2 years after your project's launched. I wonder if they thought it was going to be like the Naomi arcades where Konami, Capcom, and other developers would start making arcade games on it, and they would get ported to Xbox, and they would have only on Xbox labels on those games. So
right.
That it didn't work out that way, but we did get some really excellent games on it. I think House of the Dead 3, Virtual Cop 3, and OutRun 2 are really good-looking, fantastic games. So online, I did go on and read a few interviews with Sega AM2 based on this game. And one of the interviews I read was kind of interesting, a little funny. It's a little like basically the interviewer complaining about what he wants in OutRun 2 in a way. So one of the things he complained about was that the game didn't have data cards. And this was something that was started in the early 2000s, so it was kind of cutting edge at the time of OutRun 2 coming out. While we didn't grow up, obviously in Japan, playing in data cards, so we don't have nostalgia for it. Do you think that a game like OutRun 2 needs a data card?
You know, I don't think so. I think the original game was so sit down and play. Now, I understand that at the time, and I think still to this day, like, there is a community of Japanese arcade fanatics who are like, well, the game needs to have this community built around it, and I need to either be able to bring, like, a home console memory card or have, like, you know, like those horse racing games where you have the card, the dedicated card. In this case, though, like, honestly, it's meant for more casual play. You sit down, enjoy it, and move on. I don't think OutRun is the franchise to use this sort of tech. Now, you know, the F-Zero AX allowed you to use your GameCube memory card, which is cool. And in this case, what would you do? An Xbox memory card? Well, Xbox is like evil in Japan. At this time, they were like, if you bought, and this is true, if you, Xbox Nation magazine had a great ongoing series of articles talking about Xbox in Japan, and they were like, and they didn't, you know, no BS because it was an unofficial magazine. They were like, yeah, I went to the store, I went in the back, and they put it in a discreet black bag. They were very quiet about the purchase, and they had me hide it as I left so that no one would know I purchased an Xbox. Jesus. So imagine that, like, OutRun 2 in Japanese arcades. Bring your memory card. You know, it's not going to happen.
No. And I think the game, especially 2, is more old school, very, like, straightforward, kind of like the original game.
Yeah.
They added a lot more bells and whistles as the game was re-released. But I agree. I don't think you need a data card. I think it'd be cool just to have as like a nostalgia thing. Like, look, I have an OutRun 2 data card. But outside of that, I don't know what you would really need it for 2. So I agree with I don't agree with the interviewer. But his second complaint was the lack of memorable characters, which kind of prompted them to retort, like, what do you want, Jackie from Virtual Fighter? And the guy's like, yeah, that would be awesome. And then he's kind of talked about how they almost put him in there, and I guess they did it for testing maybe. And they thought that, no, it wasn't what OutRun's about. And I think if you played the first game, the game's about the scenery, the driving, and the music.
Absolutely.
So you don't even see the characters that you're driving as mostly, except for the endings. So I don't think you would need interesting characters for this game. I don't think that's like the biggest concern for this game.
I think that would that would kind of ruin the game if it suddenly became a super big character focused title. Something that comes to mind is Planet Harriers. Now, I enjoy that game immensely, but as a Space Harrier game, it is not. Like, I just think it went a little too over the top with, like, it's a nurse, it's a baseball player, and I'm like, that wasn't really the original Space Harrier.
You didn't remember the baseball player hero from Space Harrier 1 and 2?
No, I don't.
I really wonder, I mean, maybe one day we'll have a negotiate answer our questions, but you should ask him, why did you guys have all these weird characters in space Planet Harriers? Like, why? What were you guys thinking? I have a feeling they were drunk.
Probably.
Yeah, okay. And, like, can you imagine playing OutRun and you're, like, racing as Sonic? Would that be okay? I know it works on, like, Super Monkey Ball, but you think it would work on this?
No, I think All-Stars Racing Transformed gave us that, and that's as close as they should get.
That's true. That's as close as... Well, and this franchise actually kind of kickstarted All-Stars, really, if you think about it, with Sumo Digital and their relationship with Sega.
That's true. That's true.
So let's talk about the different versions of OutRun. You could write a lot about the different releases of OutRun, and we did. I did. So the game was updated from a small arcade game in 2003 all the way to the last official release in 2009. So let's just talk about each version. First, we'll look at the arcade OutRun 2. First, I got the cabinets here. I like looking at cabinets. I think cabinets are cool. I think OutRun 1 has the most iconic cabinet of all time. But here we have the single cabinet and a deluxe version. I think we're probably going to be talking about the deluxe version more than the regular single player one. Personally, I'm really disappointed with these because I feel like the first OutRun game had such a unique cabinet that moved and did all this other stuff. This one looks like Daytona USA maybe, or any other racing game you would see in the mall, really.
Yeah, and it's got to be a reuse of a shell. These things cost a lot of money to make, and by this point, Sega made so many racing games that I can imagine doing a completely new mold when they already have so many great racing games makes sense, but it also makes this look like, not a knockoff, but, like the arcade 1-up cabinet. It looks like one of those.
Yeah, it does. And it's like, they didn't really add too much Ferrari stuff, I would think. They would go a little more crazy that this game really is a big celebration of Ferrari, which is kind of crazy. As much as it is celebration of OutRun, And this cabinet's just like I said, like the seats, they just don't do it for me. When you're making a sequel to one of the best Sega AM2 games, you should go a little more crazy with the cabinet. So I feel like there was more passion made with the first OutRun cabinet than this one.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And these cabinets aren't even made by Sega AM2. They have a other company within Sega that makes them. I think they're called like Sega Megatronic or something like that. I forgot the name. It was something like that. So, whatever. It feels like they try to make them as cheap as possible. Not like Sega AM2 in the golden days where they like probably had a huge budget. So, gameplay-wise, OutRun 2 is a lot like the first game. Obviously, it takes ideas like the branching paths, beating the clock, driving a Ferrari with your passenger, because I think I've heard that as the official term, girlfriend. See, this guy is so cool. It's not even his girlfriend, just a person that he's taking somewhere to one destination.
He's an Uber driver.
Yeah, he's an Uber driver to Ferrari. But the new game does have a couple new features like a rich racer-style drifting, slipstreaming, and heart attack mode, which adds small challenges as you're playing the game. What are your opinions on these additions made? Do you think it's enough to keep the new entry from feeling fresh?
Yeah, absolutely. I like what they've added. It's all fun. It's not too technical. It doesn't feel like it's from another game. It really just feels like they're taking elements that existed in the original OutRun and amplifying them. I like the heart attack mode. I feel like at this time, a lot of Sega games were like relying on like lovey-dovey editions, like Love mode in Samba de Amigo.
Yeah.
So I think that's cool. I think that's super cute. I feel like it's kind of been, we talk about palm trees and blue skies, but I think Sega games also, it's a common theme to just be like all about love. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of Sega games are super like lovey, and I don't mean like I don't mean like sexual, but just like straight up pink hearts, red hearts. I don't know. I like that about Sega. Yeah, it's just like everything. There's so many Sega games where there is either an element or a extra mode where it's all about just like being in love.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's a thing.
Yeah, and I would say the heart attack mode at the time reminded me a lot of the kind of like the money system in Crazy Taxi, that you get rewarded sometimes for like getting really close and scaring the drivers.
Yeah.
But in this one, it's her scaring her or doing her challenges to make her fall in love with you and get hearts. Mm-hmm. It's funny that they call it heart attack because it kind of feels like it's panicking. When I guess it's part of the whole driving a fast car with a woman. I mean, the stereotype is that their heart starts racing or whatever. I get it. And they played it pretty good in this. It's obviously a joke. It's not supposed to be a weird sexist thing or anything, but yeah. OutRun 2 features 15 courses laid out as a backwards pyramid. That's the easiest way to describe it. Every time you get to the end of a course, they'll ask you to go left or right, as long as you beat the clock, obviously. And then if you go left, it's easy. If you go right, it gets harder. Each course is different, so it'll branch out to at least, I think, 5 different endings. We will be looking... So this game, OutRun 2, the original, is European stages. I know Barry really knows his European geography and history of Europe. Yeah. I've seen him add U's sometimes in some of our emails, and I know that he knows what he's doing. And I think he's gonna probably guess exactly what these are supposed to represent. I think some of these are just whatever. Like, I don't think there's just a generic setting. Like, so you start the game off at Palm Beach. Where do you think this is at? Somewhere in the UK, right?
Italy?
Italy, you think?
Is that Italy?
Could be. I don't know. Somebody did tell me. I like the SP starting level more than this one, but this one's okay. It's cool. So we're going to be looking at them from the top-down pyramid. You'll start seeing it on the little map. So if you look at the top right-hand corner, you see the map. Yeah. Deep Lake. I feel like, I don't know, it's a little generic. Deep Lake, is there deep lakes in anywhere in Europe?
Deep Lake. Is it Scotland, maybe?
I can see that. Let's go to...
Like Nessie's there?
Alpine, which is just like a forest.
Oh.
So where's this at? Can you...
Where are the Alpine things? Like Alpine skiing?
Norway? Like Finland?
No.
There's no snow here, huh?
Where are the Alps? The Alps. Let me see.
Oh, you're gonna get it.
The Alps.
My favorite thing is that they just named them like Alpine.
No one knows. I think no.
No one knows.
Maybe, I don't know. Monaco, Switzerland. Maybe it's Switzerland.
I can see that, but no snow. I mean, I always think of Switzerland as Christmas or something, right?
It's always Christmas there.
Castle Wall. Obviously, the UK, they have all the castles, right? Where they
Germany, maybe?
Germany has castles. They all have castles. It could be anywhere. It could be China.
Yeah. Well, we have a castle here in Chicago. It's Medieval Times. It's a restaurant.
Conferius Forest, is that right?
What is that?
It's like
Let's just say it's the UK.
It's the UK. A desert? Is there a desert in what is considered part of Europe?
Is that a pyramid?
That's what I'm saying. Egypt. That's what I'm saying. It's a pyramid, but is that considered Europe?
I mean, Egypt's not in Europe.
That's what I'm saying.
This game sucks, man. They can't get anything right.
Oh my god, this is back to the 80s, you know, when they have one of those things where like they didn't even understand the basic. I'm going to laugh if you look it up and they're like, Egypt is part of Europe, actually, sir. Cloudy?
It is indeed. It's classed in Europe.
Okay.
Because it borders the Mediterranean.
There you go, then. They were technically correct. They really wanted to add a pyramid, I think. They're like, oh, yeah.
Who doesn't?
Yeah, I know. They're so sick. When I was a kid and they did the whole study, I think everyone was like, oh, dude, Egypt's sick.
Oh, man. I have a book of Egyptian art. It's like it's like photos of like Egyptian walls and temples and tombs. It's like this big. It's sick.
I believe it because I don't know. I really like Egyptian culture. It's interesting when you're a kid and you're like, wait, there was people that lived like just the idea how like complex and like all these. They're so strange, but yeah.
Right. People think that we're like those Americans who love Japanese culture. I don't know what are they called?
Oh, weeaboos, but we're really Egyptian boos.
Yeah, but we're Egyptians. We're Egyptaboos.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, dude. Cloudy Highlands, and this picture really reminds me. I forgot that Sega was sponsored by AMD, the processor company, so all the billboards had their big old logo on it. Remember that?
Yeah. I love AMD.
And what do you think Cloudy Highlands is? And I think they use one like an SP has a level that looks exactly like this.
Where does that movie Highlander take place? Wherever that is.
I agree. Wherever it is, that's where it is. Industrial Complex. It kind of looks like a Eggman amusement park in a way, or like a Sonic level, doesn't it?
I think it's Mobius.
There you go. Then I don't know.
Yeah.
Snowy Mountain. This is Switzerland. Look at that. Santa Claus is right there.
Yeah, that's Switzerland.
I'm pretty sure that's where Santa Claus is from. So
Nailed it.
Ghost Forest. This is Japan, right? The Suicide Forest.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Right? It's just scary.
It must be.
This is the second hardest route level. It's pretty scary. Tulip Garden. Look at that, dude. Look at those flowers. It's beautiful.
That's Holland.
Yeah, and look at the Bridgestone tires ad. So awesome.
That is cool.
Metropolis. This is one of the finals. This is already the final scene.
Oh, that's France.
Yeah, for sure. And it looks really, really nice, obviously. I like the last courses usually are pretty good, obviously. It's trying to wow you, even though most people don't see them. Ancient Ruins, which is obviously maybe, I don't know, Greece, maybe? I don't know.
That looks like, in Indiana Jones when they're going to get the Grail. Kind of looks like that.
So this is a scene from Indiana Jones. That's what you're saying?
Does, yeah.
Okay. Imperial Avenue, which is like, I don't know what walls these are. This
Rome.
could be Rome?
Italy.
Yeah, all right.
They look like the aqueducts.
Oh, yeah.
Aqua.
Cape Way. This reminds me of a Sonic Unleashed level, doesn't it? The first one?
That does. It looks like, it does look like Sonic Unleashed. Greece.
Greece, right?
Which is an island, so how does that work?
You race around it, I guess? I don't know. Those are all the courses. I'm not going to ask you which one your favorite was, but you played this one the most, right? Compared to the other games? Like the other versions, you said you didn't really play SP because there's not really that many versions of it.
Right, yeah. Outrun 2 is the one I've played the most. And now that I know there's so many differences, I gotta get the other ones.
It's worth it, I think. I think you'll... Right now, some of them are kind of expensive. I think Coast to Coast is kind of like 80-ish to 100-ish. Maybe it went up more. I haven't seen it since COVID.
If I get PS2 one, I think it's lower.
Oh, dude, but the PS2, like the Xbox is obviously the one in consoles to get. But
I know.
But if you have the online one, the arcade, it's basically SP. But we'll talk about that later. I didn't know if we were going to talk about Ferrari cars. This game has 8 different Ferrari cars to choose from. I will mention them and talk about them a little bit, and you could rate the actual car design, and you could tell me which ones you like the most. I will give you a little fun fact about them. One thing I didn't know about Ferraris is they literally don't even make that many Ferrari cars. Like you'll start seeing here. So the first car we're looking at is the F40 that's in this game. This was manufactured from 95 to 97, and there were only 349 of these made. So only less, that's so little. It's crazy that they only make 300. You designed this car just to sell 300 and something copies. I mean, versions of it. What do you think about that? Did you know that?
No, that's pretty wild.
Yeah, that was
pretty cool.
I mean, it's cool that you could play it in this game for free. I mean, not free. You have to buy the game.
Free.
Not for free, but
right.
Compared to the price of actually owning one. I mean, next one we have is the Dino 246 GTS. This one's manufactured from 69 to 74. And this was actually the brand that Ferrari used to use before, for more cheaper cars, as they kept Ferrari for their more premium cars, because you can't put Ferraris. You can't put their name on trash. According to Wiki, the Dino 646 GTS only had 1,274 vehicles created of this exact model. I actually really like the look of this model. It reminds me of kind of like a Mustang mixed with some, Ferrari look. I think it's a cool looking car. Obviously, we're never going to own one because it costs more than houses. This is the most iconic car for OutRun, the Testarossa. This one was manufactured from 84 to 91, and it obviously is known for the original game, and obviously has to make its return. This one had a modest 9,939 vehicles produced, and is the largest mass-produced Ferrari model. I don't think so. I think there's the Spider that might be more, but I think for a single vehicle, it's the largest. Like no different versions of variations. Would you ever buy Testarossa just as? I mean, you can really because there's only 10,000 made. I mean, there's no way you'll make it as a joke.
If I was much richer than I am right now, I'd get that one for sure.
I know it's so iconic that as a Sega fan, but then, and now I know why Yu Suzuki and Yuji Naka put that you have to give me a Ferrari as a in their clause when they got hired.
Absolutely.
It's like they only made 10,000 of these, so now Sega had to go buy them these. How do you even get one? I don't know. The next one is the newest model in this game. So this is the Enzo Ferrari. It was manufactured from 2002 to 2004. Obviously, this game came out in 2003. This car is actually named after the founder of Ferrari, Enzo Ferrari, and only 400 were produced. And isn't that kind of a sick ass name though, Enzo Ferrari? Like, can you imagine being born? Oh yeah, it's a little Enzo Ferrari. It's like, damn.
Sounds like a Bayonetta character.
It does. It really does, right? It's so yeah.
Enzo Ferrari. Hey, how you doing, sweet cheeks? You know.
Exactly. That's what I thought too. We got the 360 Spider. This was a 2001 to 2005 car. The 360 Spider was popular, getting 7,565 cars produced. And they had other versions of this car. This is a cool looking car. It's very I guess simple compared to the Testarosa's sharp edges. This is really reminds me more of a convertible car that you would buy today, like a Tesla almost, but more disc, weird, flat on top. But yeah, the next one, this car is pretty cool looking. The Daytona car, the GTS 4 Daytona. Came out in 71 through 73. There was a few models of this. There was over 1,284 units made. Only 122 of this GTS version that's in the game. The car was used in 1971 by Gan Gurnley and Brock Yates in a cross country trip. They won. Going from New York City to LA in this car. So they traveled 2,876 miles in 35 hours and 54 minutes. So it's a world record. It's a cool looking car, but can you imagine driving 2,000 miles in a car that small? Where would you pack your stuff? Come on, dude.
Right.
There is no roof on the car. So you're literally driving every single time, no matter what, from New York to California, LA, with no roof. Can you imagine that? No way, dude. Give me a stupid trash car. I don't care. But yeah, it's a cool car, but I wouldn't drive it across country. That's all. Would you? Does anybody drive sports cars across country? Maybe.
No, I don't think so. Well, maybe enthusiasts.
This right here is the 288 GTO, produced from 84 to 85, and as you can tell, this is a very 80s looking vehicle. Yeah. No, I don't really have anything to say outside. There's only 272 of these produced, and it kind of begs the question. It's who are the 272 people that own this car? It's that's super rare. And the last one is, and this is a pretty iconic car, I think too. The F40 came out in 87 and 92. It wasn't in, this game was not in OutRun, but it was in Turbo OutRun, Battle OutRun, and OutRun Europa. And the GTE version of this car was in Scut Race, a game that never came out on consoles, sadly. This car was created to celebrate Ferrari's 40th anniversary, and was the last Ferrari model to be approved by the company founder Enzo Ferrari. So the F40 only had an original plan of making 400 of these. But each car cost $400,000, by the way. That would be about almost $1 million in today's money. And they would go on to produce 1,315 of these because of demand. and only 213 came to the U.S. I don't know. You think one of these cars is worth that much money? Is a car worth almost $1 million? The size of the price of a mega mansion?
I mean, it's worth what people are willing to pay, right?
Well, not even a mega mansion.
Isn't that everything?
The price of a normal size house. Sorry. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's cool to see these cars. Personally, I'd feel so guilty owning one. I'd be like, I can't even drive into the store. Why would I drive into the store? What would people think of me pulling up in a Ferrari? That's ridiculous. To go buy what? Deodorant? I'm buying deodorant in my Ferrari. Like, what is wrong with me? I think it's something you take, when you're fancy or something. Like your girlfriend in the highway. So that's for rich people, not for us. So in 2004, a year later, Sega released OutRun SP. So right after. So this version, SP stands for Special Tours. Here we could see the cabinet. This is the OutRun 2 SP Deluxe Cabinet. It's outside of it being yellow, it's more like the original with an actual bumper in the back to give it more like the vibe that the original OutRun had. It's still It's still kind of a generic cabinet outside of that bumper, but at least they're trying this time. Yellow, what do you think about the yellow design? Because OutRun is usually known more for red.
Yeah, I'm not really feeling it. It kind of reminds me of the Daytona USA 2 cabinet, where there's something off about it.
Yeah.
Like they were like, oh, we got to do a different color. And it's like, if this was red, it would, I think, look a little better. But it does kind of look like just like a weird booty that they added, like the back of the car. It doesn't really look like, it doesn't give me the sense of a car. It looks just like a big butt.
Yeah, and there's no, there was something cool about the OutRun. It was like, it had the roof kind of, so it's like you're in the car kind of, you know what I mean? The feeling more. This is so open that it's not really like that, but I think it's better than the first OutRun cabinet that was way more generic. It looked like literally just a Daytona chair or whatever, and you're sitting on it. So, or any other racing game you see anywhere. This one at least has a little more personality. I don't like the yellow either. I wish they would have went with blue maybe if they wanted to go different. I would have obviously preferred it red because Ferraris, usually you see them in red. So, yeah. It's weird that they went with yellow. Maybe they just wanted to stand out. But OutRun 2 SP doubles the amount of courses in OutRun 2 by adding 15 more. This time, these courses were inspired by American traveling. And when I say America, they say New World. I think that's what they called it. So it's not just United States of America. It's all of the Americas. It also reintroduces the rival system from Turbo OutRun with different rules. In Turbo OutRun, you were punished for not beating rivals. In this game, they're more of obstacles and extras. OutRun 2 SP also has all the content from OutRun 2, meaning all the courses, making this the arcade definitive at the time to play. Kind of like you said, Turbo OutRun kind of. You know what? SP really does remind me of OutRun 2, OutRun and OutRun, Turbo OutRun, OutRun 2 and OutRun 2 SP. They're kind of the same. They reintroduced the Turbo OutRun rival system. They have 15 courses in America, just like Turbo OutRun. So, they're really inspired by Turbo OutRun in this game. Yeah. And they also updated the user interface and made the explaining how you score better. And is that something you ever noticed in games? When you go to the arcades, you don't really understand how the scoring system works?
Yeah, I like when they really spell it out to you, because you sit down and you just want to start playing. You don't have time to sit there and go through a tutorial, but no, I appreciate it. I do.
So what's your opinion on arcade games like these? They get a lot of upgrades. Has there ever been a franchise where you're like, I want to get into it, but there's so many versions of it, I don't even know where to start?
There hasn't been a franchise I'm thinking of that I held off from getting into, but I do feel like Virtua Fighter in the later numbered games, it gets very confusing, especially with all the showdown games, Final Showdown, Ultimate Showdown. You're like, which one do I get? Is the one on, like, what was it, Judgment or something that included Virtua Fighter 5, but it's not like the same as the one that you can play on the exact same console.
It's like
and then it's not
version.
the same as Final. Yeah, it's just it does get a little confusing there. I'm the type of person where I'm happy to just have like a definitive version of a game, and I don't need a dozen other copies of it. So it gets confusing. I think Wonder Boy is kind of a confusing franchise too, especially with all the remakes that are coming out recently. I actually have one right here, Wonder Boy Returns Remix, which is like a remake of the original, but it's more true to the original. And the other one, Wonder Boy Returns, which I don't own, is different than this. This is not the same game. This game is truer to the original game, which makes me go, well, what's the other game like? Like, it's a little confusing there. But yeah, I'd say fighting games in general confuse me.
Oh, dude, like, mine was going to be Blaze Blue. Like, look how many versions that has. Or what is it? In Night Rebirth or whatever those games are called too. It's like, try to look for them, and then you're like, there's 15 different versions of this with different titles, and they're all different randomly, and there's some characters missing in this one. Oh, you bought the
like
Capcom
I'm holding
fighting?
here the fighting collection. It's very cool, but I was just so confused. I'm like, Deathstalkers, Night Warriors, Deathstalkers Revenge, Vampire Hunter 2, Deathstalkers Revenge. I'm like,
too.
what? It's so confusing.
It's because they called it Darkstalkers in America, but in Japan it was called Vampire Hunter, I think. So now they had, and then they used Darkstalkers in one title, but in America they were all called Dark. See, now that's when it gets confusing, when you have all these versions that don't have numbers usually, and then you have two titles in two different countries. So it's like, okay, cool.
Super confusing.
So you're an American, right, Barry?
Last time I checked, buddy boy.
Born, bred, and raised in America.
Absolutely.
All right, okay, so you're probably from the best state of America. I don't know, whichever one you're from, that's the best one. So we're going to
Midwest.
The Midwest. That's where all the good boys come from. Everything else, whatever.
Garbage.
So we're gonna flip through the 15 Americans or New World stages. You can tell me where these are from. You're probably going to guess each one. The first one is Sunny Beach. Where's Sunny Beach is from?
It all depends. This could be Florida. This could be California. But I'm going to guess California. I'm going to say this is like the LA area.
I will too.
Looks very mountainous.
So I went to Florida not that long ago, and this is definitely more California for some reason. Just gives me the vibe.
Florida's flat.
And there's no lizards here. There's no roosters randomly. Oh, I was in the Keys, so that's... Over there, they have roosters walking around everywhere, and they're protected, so you can't kill them or do anything to them. You just have to let them roam. So they're beautifully walking around everywhere. And the next one, Bay Area, which, I mean, come on. This is San Francisco. This is so obvious. But yeah, it's the Bay Area.
100%.
National Park, which, I mean, Yosemite?
It's hard to say. It could still be in California. Could be Oregon.
Could be. There's a lot of national parks.
Yeah.
Waterfalls.
This is probably the Grand Canyon, right, or something like that. Or
there's a Grand Canyon level.
Grand Canyon's dried.
Yeah, this is. I don't know what this is. Anywhere there's waterfalls. Could be like a South America somewhere. Are they known?
Seems like I get confused though because you're like going from California to South America to.
Well, it's the Americas, so it could be anywhere in the Americas. So yes, Big Forest. This could be Washington. I would assume myself.
Colorado.
Yeah, Colorado has a lot of forests.
There's like a pickup truck with I think like a MAGA bumper sticker on it, like trying to run you off the road.
This could be both Washington or.
Oh, watch now the comments. Barry made it political.
Why? Because
dang it,
that does look like it. I mean, I don't know. Can you see a Biden sticker on that thing? Maybe, I don't know.
No, I wouldn't. I if you were being run off the road by a pickup truck, do you think it's going to have a Biden sticker? I don't think so.
No, probably not. but I've never been run off the road by anyone yet. But I hope if it is,
yeah, it's going to happen now.
It's a pickup truck, maybe. Like this. It's a nice one. The next one is, Canyon. This is the Grand Canyon, I would assume, yes.
Mm.
And the next one...
I flew over the Grand Canyon. I flew over it recently.
How was
amazing.
It?
It was beautiful. It looked like the world was breaking. It was just this massive crack running the entire stretch of what we saw. It was like...
Imagine seeing it...
And I saw...
Like, being there. Like, you don't think that would blow your mind even more, seeing how your scale being so small and this...
Oh.
Yeah. Earthly crevice being so huge.
And then a pickup truck just smashes into you and you fall into the Grand Canyon.
It happens, especially when you're driving your Ferrari. That's why I don't buy one. Not because they're rare and I can't afford it, just because I don't want to get ran over or ran into the road. The next one is pretty special because it has a cameo from a little blue boy. It's called... no, wait. Not yet. Lost City is the other one. I think this is like a Mayan or something spot. I don't know. It reminds me of some weird, like... Yeah. Anyway, Casino Town has Sonic billboards. That's what I was going to say. And Casino Town is obviously Las Vegas.
Right.
And it kind of a throwback to Casino Nights. But
I like it.
Yeah. Ice Scape, which it could be Detroit. I don't know. It looks like a abandoned industrial spot.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I like that.
Jungle. I mean, this could be South America, anywhere in South America, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, when you see the statues, you'll know this one's called Giant Statues. And where is this from, and why is his eyes like that?
Well, you know what? This is Easter Island, right? Which is, I can't imagine why this is in the Americas, right? But from what I've actually read, they would paint eyeballs on these things, but over the years they went away. Like the elements just cleared the paint off of them. But yeah, even ancient statues, a lot of them were like painted with colors and with eyes and everything, and they didn't look the way we see them now. So
that sucks.
Yeah.
This one's called The Legend, and this one's a Aztec temple, it looks like. So Mexico somewhere. Probably the middle, the F, I guess. Floral Village. I don't know, what is this?
Aww.
It looks nice, but where is this at?
It looks like a Midwest lake or something.
It's like somewhere nice. A Stephen King novel would take place.
Yeah, I like it.
This is the one that I remember the most because it's so striking compared to every other stage. Milky Way. Because you get to see the Milky Way and the NASA explosions. I mean, cars.
Yeah.
Or ship.
This
whatever.
Is space cars. No, it's
space cars.
This is definitely Florida.
This is Florida. Do they have a space station there?
Or Texas. I'm going to say Florida. Yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful sky, though. I mean, doesn't look like that, and it looks really nice when they're all shooting. You're just driving with your
Cape Canaveral
passenger. Skyscrapers. Chicago. I can see it. Look at the homeless people on the side.
Let me see. This, it's got a little more of a New York vibe to me.
Oh yeah, you're right. It's probably New York. It's like a more popular Chicago, more poppin'.
Hey,
I'm just joking. I'm joking. Anyway,
don't you dare!
I'm not gonna be making fun of you. I don't know why you defend Chicago so much. When people make fun of California, when I was in Florida, I'm like, yeah, I know. I can't really do much about it. I mean, I just live there. And I got so much grief for just being from California. It's funny.
How dare you?
Well, the game doubled its courses. OutRun 2 SP only added 2 new vehicles to the roster, making it a total of 10 cars to pick from. This game features let's look at it, the 250 GTO, made from 62 to 64. This is considered the rarest Ferrari of all time. Only 36 were ever produced of this vehicle. I like it. It reminds me of, it's obviously an old race car. It has a very unique build. It looks like something out of like an anime or something, like a Speed Racer or something. right?
Yeah, I like it. It's cool. I like the big number 20 on the side.
The other car is the 512 BB. Came out from 76 to 81. This is actually the first Dino car, the mid-engine car, to actually use the Ferrari branding before they retired it. So I guess there's some history with the company with this one. So as you can tell, covering every Atari car in this game, they feel like they were all selected as an interesting car the developers liked. As you can tell, they really like Ferrari vehicles at Sega. It's part of the history with the company, oddly enough. So, yeah. Now we can talk about a game that you have, OutRun on OutRun 2 on Xbox. This is the first console port of the arcade version of OutRun 2, and it came out the same year as SP. But this is just the original with some cool extras, actually. The game was ported by Sumo Digital and would start a working relationship with Sega. Sumo Digital was actually founded in 2003, a year before this port came out. And this is one of the company's first projects. They would go on to make their own version of Sega arcade classics like future OutRun 2 ports and virtual tennis console stuff. But would also be famous with Sega fans for making the Sega All-Star Racing and Tennis series. Do you miss Sumo Digital working on Sega arcade home ports?
Absolutely, yeah, 100%. I miss Platinum Games and I miss Sumo Digital. I feel like when I see their names come up, I'm just like, I get sad because the stuff they're putting out now, I know it's, getting them their own acclaim and everything, but it's just not the same. It's like, we still follow Sumo and Platinum on social, but it'll be like, Sackboy's getting a new game, and it's like, oh, I wish it was All-Stars Racing 3.
What happened to virtual tennis? We could use another virtual tennis. Why not? Yeah, I would agree. I think this game, or Coast to Coast, has a lot of stuff that they would later go on to use with All-Stars, and that made them more famous because of all the IPs. But I really do miss when they would just make their own virtual tennis console game with a bunch of cool mini games, and they were just fun to play. And you know what's funny? I was going to put here, it's been how long since Sumo Digital and Sega worked, and I forgot they made that Sonic Team Racing game, or Team Sonic Racing? Is that what
Team
it's called?
Sonic Racing, yeah.
Yeah. It's because it was so it came out and it kind of went into the ether of games. I don't feel like it got the positive reaction over time that even All-Stars Racing Transformed did.
Yeah, it didn't.
Yeah, that's sad. But anyway, hopefully they make another All-Stars Sega big tribute game. I think it's just having Sonic. Even if they do just a Sonic one, I hope they add a lot of cool stuff like they did with All-Stars Racing Transformed.
Right. That's what Team Sonic Racing was missing. It just didn't go all out. It felt very bland and generic,
It's just like the modern heroes that you already seen in a million games.
Yeah.
So OutRun 2 on Xbox runs at 420p anamorphic widescreen support. Tweaks were made for the home consoles. So the arcade version of the game on this is called OutRun Arcade, while Sumo Digital added OutRun Challenge, which includes 101 missions distributed via the game's 15 stages. And OutRun Xbox Live, which I'm assuming is online play, obviously. Sumo Digital also snuck in a Scud Race and Daytona USA 2 courses as unlockables. This means Sumo Digital locked... so a lot of the original game's content that was just unlocked in the arcade version, you have to unlock it here, like new music, but some of it was unique content. It also has the first OutRun game in OutRun 2 as unlockable if you do all the missions. So, and no other version that came out in home consoles actually has OutRun 1 or the Scud Race and Daytona USA 2 courses. So those are uniquely on this version of the game. So if you own this game, that's something that you should always... it's unique in that way. There's actual content that no other version has. You own this version, but do you think the other versions made this version obsolete?
Oh, I have OutRun Online Arcade, and Outrun 2, and I hardly ever play Outrun 2 now. So
I guess so, right?
I would say, and it's an Xbox 360 game, if I'm not mistaken, whereas Outrun 2 is Xbox with backwards compatibility on the 360. So you get better graphics, I think.
Yeah,
it's 720p, I think.
Yeah, no, it looks crisp on the online arcade version, and we'll talk about that because it's coming up. But the next version is probably the one I played the most because it was on everything. The console version of Outrun 2 was, this game came out on the Xbox, PS2, PlayStation Portable, and Windows PC. This game is based off Outrun 2 SP, the arcade game, but was fully developed from the ground, well, not the ground up because it's a port technically, but it was basically, they call Sumo Digital the sole developer of this game, even though it's really using the base of Outrun 2 SP. This version of Outrun 2 adds all the cars from SP, the extra cars from the Xbox Outrun 2, and 3 additional Ferraris, bringing it to a total of 15 cars. Well, we're not going to be talking about it, but one of them was called the Ferrari Super America, which they debuted in 2005, making it the newest Ferrari at the time of the creation of this game. So can you imagine driving a Ferrari Super America, not regular America? That's for pansies. You're from the Midwest. You got to drive a Super America. That's the only way. So yeah. So this version of the game also featured Coast to Coast mode, which is the game's career mode, where you take missions, complete races with rivals, and take on requests from your passenger girlfriend, and execute the request to excite her with hearts, which is heart attack, really. All the modes from SP are here too, like Outrun Race, Heart Attack, and Time Attack, while adding 4 more new modes for this version. Test Your Drift, a one-on-one race with the objective of accumulating points by drifting through bins, so just drift and get the most points. Test Your Slipstream, which is the same thing. You collect points by beating rivals with Slipstream, which is you have to slip through another vehicle and you get a little boost. Avoid the Knockout. In elimination race, the last placed car at the end of each stage is automatically ejected from the challenge. Do Not Lose Your Girlfriend mode. Another one-on-one duel, but here the player must stay ahead of the rival couple until their hearts reach 0, which are pretty unique modes that they added and pretty smart if you think about it. And I think that's one of the biggest strengths for Sumo Digital is they come up with these clever mini games that they add to these games using the original system, allowing you to get more out of it. They did a really good job on virtual tennis games too. The game also had Outrun Miles that allow you to unlock cars, tracks, challenges, and background music. While this game is mostly the definitive home version, it is missing the Outrun 86 port and, like I said, the 2 courses from the original Xbox. Also, Clarissa, the girl's characters, her design was censored. If you see in the American version, she's wearing that blue top that's tied in the middle. She's wearing a black shirt in the American. In the Japanese one, her heart area is more exposed. So they censored that in America.
Interesting.
Which is kind of weird, but whatever. What is your opinion of Outrun 2 Coast to Coast? You never played it, you said, right?
No opinion.
Oh, man. I think you're missing out. I think it's a really good game. I would, like I told you, try to get a maybe not so legal version of the PC version and just run it on your Mac with a fan mod that we'll talk about in the end of this episode. But it's a pretty fantastic version of the game, I think. And I had a lot of fun with it playing it. And it has Outrun miles. They're kind of like the miles you accumulate in All-Stars Racing. So I think it's cool. But anyway, the next game is another arcade re-release of the game. So this one has a more impressive cabinet. So check this baby out right here. This came out in 2006. It's called Outrun 2 SP SDX. This was a port of SP, but now called SDX, and was ported to the Lindbergh arcade cabinet. So it's just basically SP re-released again on new hardware that they were distributed. Probably they're obviously replacing the old arcade. So they already had House of the Dead 4 replacing House of the Dead 3. Virtual Fighter 5 came out, and Afterburner Climax were the big games on it. This game was ported by Polygon Magic, a Japanese developer. AM2 didn't really do any of the development, but all they did was literally make the other game run on the new hardware. That's literally all they did. SDX stands for Super Deluxe and is mostly known for its 4-car arcade cabinet, which you can see here. It's the extra deluxe version and includes interactive features like a screen showing the player's reaction. Outside of the cabinet being the best one, the game is basically just the port of SP. So if you had to buy one arcade cabinet and you're super rich, this is probably the one you want, because look how big it is, how awesome it looks. It has lights. It has each car is a different Ferrari you drive in the game, modeled the back of it. I mean, I think that's super sick. What do you think about this arcade cabinet? Is this more in line with what you thought of an OutRun 2 arcade cabinet?
Yeah, it's pretty slick. I've played something similar to this once, and it is a lot of fun with the cameras and everything. And
yeah,
it does become like a spectator sort of activity for sure.
And this is something that the other versions of the game that didn't really capture. Like, it was pretty unique, the original OutRun Deluxe Cabinet, because there wasn't that many interactive games, and this is kind of like what do you expect in the mid 2000s to be an amusement machine, as they used to call them. Mm-hmm. So the next one, for some reason, OutRun 2 SP got re-released on PS2 in 2007. Why not, right? So this is sort of cheating. OutRun 2 SP on the PS2 was released in 2007, but it's actually a port of 2006 coast to coast, but for the Japanese market. In this version, it actually goes back. The developers go back and they fix bugs of the original release of Coast to Coast, adds force feedback support for steering wheels, adds extra music. Coast to Coast also, so Coast to Coast on the PSP and the PS2 had some stupid Nintendo style like cable linking where you had to unlock things by using the cable and having both versions of the game, some dumb thing like that. So this takes that all off, since they only released the PS2 version there. And they also uncensored Clarissa to her original big boob self. And
nice.
All copies are shipped with a music CD. So that's basically what they got in the chip. I actually own this because I like the game so much. I'm like, I have to have it just to have. I got it for like $5 a long time ago. So I don't think it's worth owning because the PS2 version is really not the best, in my opinion, version of the game. And it's playable. And Sumo Digital did a great job, but the game is obviously running on Xbox hardware. It's like recommending the PS2 version of Sonic Heroes, kind of, you know?
Right.
So while it's cool Sega went in and fixed aspects of the game for the Japanese release, do you think it's kind of a waste not doing this update for the Xbox and PC versions as well?
Oh, absolutely. It always is frustrating when like a multi-platform game sees, like new versions and either it's region locked or in this case region locked and hardware locked, and PS2 is not the definitive version, so I can see why that's not ideal for sure.
And so the last arcade, this is the last version of OutRun released. OutRun Online Arcade in 2009. This is the first version and only version, really, for HD consoles, releasing on both PS3 and 360, but was actually considered a stripped-down version of OutRun 2 SP. And another big issue with this game is that the PSN version was only released in Europe. I don't know why. While the Xbox Live version was released worldwide. The game was also digital only in 2009, when not everyone transitioned to digital yet. So it was kind of I wonder how many people bought. You think they cut their audience in half by just doing the digital?
It seems like they did, yeah.
Yeah. So while the game comes with 15 of the SP courses, the game is actually missing the original 15 courses. So you see where it's stripped down. and the game focused more on its online racing mode than it did on coast to coast stuff like the extras. Do you think Sega made a big mistake focusing on online racing portion of this title instead of making the definitive OutRun 2 coast to coast HD?
I mean, on one hand, it would have been nice to have a definitive version, but it's in the title, OutRun Online Arcade, and we saw that with other titles at the time. If I'm remembering, there was Sega Rally that had a digital-only online focused version, and then there was also, though, a home console one, Sega Rally Revolution, right? Or Revo.
Yeah. So,
it would have been nice. I think they should have gone all out and just made it like a disc release. It seems, though, at the time there were a lot of digital exclusive Sega titles that are still digital exclusive. Sonic 4, Afterburner Climax, this one, Sega Rally. Like, there's a good amount of them. And even arcade ports, like Sonic the Fighters, Virtua Fighter 3 or 2. It's like, what you gonna do? I own them all, thankfully, even the delisted stuff. So, but I'm sure you have something to say about that.
The delisted stuff, yes. So let me see what this article was made. 2010, October 12th, 2010. Sega basically came out and said that the games were going to be delisted in 2011. According to them, it was because they basically couldn't reach an agreement with Ferrari. I think this game sold so bad for them that they were like, all right, we milked OutRun 2 as much as we could. It's time for us to stop paying for the Ferrari license and move on. I think they are racing games in the 2010s weren't as popular as they were. This is like 2008. What was it?
Definitely.
They were more like third-person shooter games, like Uncharted, more cinematic. People weren't more into arcade games, sadly. So I could see this move, but it sucks that they can't sell the old games. And even other games like the original, like the OutRun on Sega Ages, no Ferrari license, so the cars are modified. But what is your opinion of Sega letting the Ferrari license expire?
It's a shame. I mean, we've seen them go back and re-up licenses so that they can bring stuff back, like Crazy Taxi with the original music, and I think even Afterburner Climax came back on the phone.
Yeah.
There are instances where they've gone back, but it seems like OutRun, they're just not interested. We have the Mega Drive Mini 2 coming out, and it's going to have the altered version of the game on there, which I'll be 100% honest, I never notice. Like, to me, a red car is a red car.
Yeah.
I know that's sacrilege, but like, especially when it's all pixelated like that, I don't notice. I'm like, oh, cool, OutRun. I love OutRun. So
I have to agree, especially on the old one. It's like, it's just a pixel car. Like, this one, I mean, okay, so if OutRun 2 would be, let's say they re-release Coast to Coast, they get a developer to, like, make it more modern, they fix a bunch of stuff, they make it look nice, but they modify every car to not be a Ferrari car. Would that be okay?
No, I don't think so. I think once you get into 3D graphics here, like, I can't imagine modifying all 10 cars or whatever. They just...
Probably just have one red car.
Not feasible. Yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot of people would complain. I think it's kind of like the Wimmer when they tried to do those Dreamcast games and they didn't have the soundtrack for Crazy Taxi. People got super upset and basically boycotted it until Jet Set Radio finally did it right. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. But, I don't know. I really want to play the game again. And, having, an actual new way of playing it with new people would be sick. But just get the Ferrari license. And I heard that Ferrari's also kind of garbage when it comes to this kind of stuff. Like, they have so many rules on how you portray the brand, which probably...
Right. I'm sure you can't show the cars getting damaged at all.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, let's talk a little bit about the music. I didn't write too much about the music because we talked a lot about the different versions of OutRun. But I will say that the game has a slapping soundtrack composed by Fumio Ito, who is best known as the lead composer for Virtua Fighter. Hiro, the original composer for the first game, and I can't even say this guy's name, but Keisuke Tsuhara, who composed...
Tsuhara.
Yeah, close enough. And who composed Shadow Dancer and Alien Storm soundtracks, which, I mean, they're good soundtracks. But what I really want to focus on is this really nice OutRun music collection. It was the OutRun 20th anniversary box set that came out in 2007 in Japan. This baby has 11 CDs with music from OutRun,
Beautiful,
Turbo OutRun, Outrunners, OutRun 2, OutRun 2 SP, OutRun 3D, and OutRun 2006 Coast to Coast. So basically the whole soundtrack, except for the new Sega Ages tracks they made for that. Obviously, they're not on this because it came out in 2007. But it's basically the full. It has remixes too of a bunch of the tracks. You could get this obviously digital somewhere. I don't know if it's on Spotify, but I will say this costs it costs a couple $100 if you want to buy it used. It's up to you if you think that's worth it, if you can afford it, but it is really cool packaging. I really love the packaging. I love that every CD is like a course from the original game. So yeah, this is cool. This is definitely an OutRun collector item for sure. If you're a big OutRun fan, you probably already own 3 of these. So I'm not going to say no more. Let's talk about OutRun 3. Next year will mark the 20th anniversary of OutRun 2. Meaning we have now waited longer from OutRun 2 to a new OutRun 3 than from OutRun 1 to 2. Sega, on the other hand, have sort of moved on from OutRun 2 in general. After the online arcade, I felt like they forgot that it was a franchise for a bit. Or at least 2 was a franchise, not 1. They still, like we talked about, they re-released the original still, but no more Coast to Coast. Back in 2006, though, the CEO of Sega Amusement, who was hot off the heels of announcing Daytona 3 Championship USA, which was later tampered to Daytona Championship USA. I wonder what happened there. Mm-hmm. He said, OutRun 3 is not on plan at the moment. It is something that is on our radar, but we cannot discuss more than that. It's obviously been like 6 years, so like I don't think it's on the radar at all. What do you think happened with Daytona 3? It was supposed to be called Daytona 3 Championship USA, right? It got a bunch of hype.
Right.
And then it was like, actually, no, it's called Daytona Championship USA, and it's basically Daytona 1 kind of re-release.
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. I followed that and used it a lot. I feel like we might have even broke it. I remember we were one of the first sites to cover it. And I have to imagine that either Sega came to them, because this is Sega Amusements, who is I don't even know, I think they're they're a separate company almost that are utilizing the Sega branding.
Now, yeah. And I have to imagine Sega took a look at the game and they're like, this is great, but this is no third game. Like, it's so different, or it's not so different. Like, if you went all out, then yeah, sure, 3, but otherwise, yeah, it kind of reads as like HD remastered, and it's still a cool game. I've played it, I like it, but is that one? I like
it's no 3.
Who developed it? The new one.
I can't say. I feel like maybe Japan had a hand, but there have been times when like Sega has like a Chinese division. They've done Golden Gun, which is like that House of the Dead quasi spin-off. So yeah, right here. But
on Sega Retro it says Sega Amusements International and Sega of China. So you're basically spot on with that. Yeah.
Yep.
And would you trust them to make an OutRun 3 without Sega AM2 and some of these people that worked on 2?
I don't think so. I think you'd have to get Sumo involved. That would be the best bet.
Yeah,
for sure.
Sumo for sure has to be involved, at least for the console versions. So I want to end it on the best way to play this game. So there's this fan mod release called OutRun 2 FXT, which basically stands for Fixed Edition. And this was released for the PC version of 2006, OutRun 2006 Coast to Coast. And you could get it if you Google Dragon King OutRun 2 FXT. And I think his site's called dragonking.arcadecontrols.com. And he has obviously the mod there. And I'm not going to read everything that it does, but I will say some of the best stuff. It obviously supports multiple monitors. It overwrites the wheel's dead zones, which was fixed on the PS2 version of the game. It also it desensors Clarissa, so if you want to see her in her more natural state, this is probably a good thing for you. It adds an arcade mode that resembles more of SP. It has the bonus songs from the PS2 release. They finally fixed the horn so it actually honks. You could also play as bonus drivers such as Flagman and some unfinished drivers they didn't get to put in the game. And so definitely worth checking out. In 2018 they updated it with the 2.5 beta, so that's the last one that came out, and I don't think it's going to be updated again. But yeah, that's a good way to close the episode. If you haven't checked the FXT patch out, definitely check it out. And I don't know if the guy has a Patreon or PayPal, but you could also check that out too. And what are your closing statements now that you know too much about OutRun 2?
Man, I really do need to try out 2006. I've actually been looking at eBay auctions for it, so
how much?
I'll eventually get it.
How much is it going to hurt?
Well, I know you don't like the PS2 version as much, but that's the version I'd have to get if I'm going to buy it. I'm not buying the Xbox one. It's way too much money.
Well, it's basically giving away $300 and something. I'm looking at it right here, and I hope not. Is that real?
Not worth it.
Whoa!
Yeah.
This actually, well, that's the original. Never mind. Yeah, $150. Yeah. It's worth every penny, though. I think. Mm-mm. Yeah, I think you should buy two of them.
But I don't know. But I'll keep an eye on it. I'll own it eventually for sure. But yeah, I feel like I know too much now. How about you? This 100 episodes. Do you have any final thoughts before we shift into Patreon memories?
I think everyone should just pirate the PC version and get the fix on it. I know it sounds bad, but Sega doesn't have a digital version. If they had like a $20 Steam version, I would say go on Steam, buy the game, support Sega. But there's literally no way to show Sega that you want this game outside of paying scalpers on the Xbox version like $250 because Sega refuses to reprint it or re-release it. So I would say save yourself the money, pirate it, that's right, break the law, I don't care, and then get the fixed version patch and just enjoy the game because it's a great game and it's worth playing. That's my closing thoughts.
Absolutely. All right. Well, the real closing thoughts are going to be coming from our Patreon supporters. If you support us at any level, you can have your memories read no matter how long. Thankfully, no one wrote an essay here, but we do have some great thoughts. First off, we have Daniel Andres, who says, "Holy crap," which is his catchphrase. He says, "Holy crap. The cat is finally out of the bag." First of all, I want to give you guys a huge congratulations on 100 episodes. And after knowing that this was going to be your 100th, I find it very fitting. OutRun 2 is such a fun, fast-paced, fantastic game. I remember getting this game complete in box from a local used game store by me a few years back. I absolutely love OutRun 2, even more so than I do the first one. This one is jam-packed and with an awesome, upgraded feel to it, and I can never get enough of it. Great arcade racing run, I think he meant to say fun, for anyone who plays it. Next up we have Hams, who says, and I want to read this like it's a Sega arcade game, "Congratulations for making 100 episodes. You're doing great work." Nice. As for OutRun 2, it's a fabulous game. That's all I have to say about it. Ben Hayward says, "I was so sure that episode 100 was going to be Snail Maze." Well, who knows? Snail Maze will happen.
I do too.
Nicholas Schaefer says, "So this is a game that didn't grab me at first. In fact, I was quite upset that it replaced Daytona at my local pizza place. But being a small selection of arcade units, I got plenty of time and quarters with it and finally grew to appreciate how unique it was compared to other racing games and grew to be a favorite arcade racer for me. On another note, congratulations on 100 episodes, and it's a testament to SEGA that you aren't even close to covering the SEGA catalog.
That's true.
Yeah, right? Well, thankfully, we never set out to cover every game, but, you know, we're hitting all the greats. So, man, you know what? Next episode, and I'm going to do something here that I don't usually do, and I hope the pickers don't mind. I'm going to swap them. And I'm going to swap them because it's too much racing.
You want to, like...
I just...
get a break.
I'm going to swap them. We need to just separate the racing a little bit. So, next episode is going to be Sega and Nintendo. We haven't really finalized how we're going to do it, but what I think I'm going to do is that we're going to run through 10 key moments in Sega and Nintendo history. And maybe break it up where it's like 5 like versus moments and 5 like partnership moments where they kind of helped each other. I think that'll be a lot of fun. And then after that, not soon after, I should say soon after, we're going to be covering Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing, which will also be an episode I'll be hosting. So I'm really looking forward to that. That's going to kick off August, whereas the Nintendo one's actually coming to Patreon supporters next week. Next week. So, yeah. So, without further ado, George, say goodbye to the people.
See you guys next time. Bye.
Bye. That's good.